Welcome back, YouTubers, to another TNA Impact Wrestling review with us, the British Fist. With TNA coming from the UK this week, we were in for a treat of us being British too. I am Mr. Parkin, the Brit, and this is my fellow British compatriot, NJ, otherwise known in this video as Dominic.NJ.
What's up?
Indeed. Subscribe up above, like this video, and put your comments on this UK edition of TNA Impact Wrestling down in that comment section below, coming from the Wembley Arena in the UK.
And make sure you contact us in the links in the description box below.
Now, I think before we go into this review, NJ, just give your thoughts on how much the feel was improved on this show, with it being in a massive arena with 6,000 people, with actual crowd heat, rather than that really canned Impact Zone. How much better to you did the show feel?
Well, going into this, obviously, the crowd, straight away, you can tell they were more with this, they were more knowing what's going on, who to champ for, what's going, and how to get behind each wrestler.
Yeah.
And I felt it was a lot more different feeling to what we get in the Impact Zone, so it was a lot more comforting for fans to watch.
It just made it feel like a bigger show, a bigger deal. I mean, you had a lot of the fans, TNA gets a lot more of a following in the UK, so it's not really surprising that when TNA goes down there, the show really is like this, and you had 6,000 people turn up. This, to me, should be a strong indication that TNA really do need to get out of that Impact Zone. They really do need to go to live crowds, because this show felt so much better being in a bigger arena with a proper ramp, you know, with 6,000 people. You know, no canned heat was needed tonight because the crowd were reacting to things unlike the Impact Zone. So that really improved the show for me tonight. I'm looking forward to next week's.
With them being in a big place like this, and obviously a lot better than the Impact Zone, they should take advantage of what it's like to be outside the Impact Zone, as they did.
Dominator.NJ thinks that it's a good idea. Maybe TNA should do it, or else NJ will come down and kill you all. I'm just saying. And also, judging by the strength of the card we got tonight, it really did look like TNA were trying to put out a show for the fans. We got a lot of sort of pay-per-view matches tonight. We got Hulk Hogan's return and everything like that. So it did seem like they were really trying to put on a show for the UK fans, which I can appreciate TNA for, because they don't come to the UK very often. So when they do, they need to kind of make it feel special.
Yeah, this was different with the match they got, but I'll get into more of my opinions as we get to each match.
Right, let's go. We open up the show with the two best heels. Would you agree? Apart from maybe Austin Aries. The two best heels in TNA right now, and arguably the wrestling business. Bully Ray and Bobby Roode open the show. And Bully Ray's talking about Hardy's not being there tonight because, you know, you people don't deserve him. And Roode's going, oh, nice to be here in Ireland. And that was quite funny. I like how they got over with the crowd there. It was a good opener. Those two guys opening the show.
Well, with those two opening, I think they definitely got the crowd going, because obviously they can work the crowd well with their heel tactics and things they say. And I quite like the opening. It's nice, short, and got to the point of what was needed to be said. Yeah,
because you had James Storm and Sting coming out talking about, you know, Hardy will be at Against All Odds. It's going to be a four-way for the world title, so we got a main event announced for Against All Odds in the opener. Bully Ray versus Jeff Hardy versus Bobby Roode versus James Storm. So that was good. And also we find out from Sting that Bully Ray and Roode are going to be in two separate matches with James Storm. So that means we're going to get James Storm in two matches tonight, which I'm all for.
Yeah, I'll get to my opinion later.
Oh, fair enough. Okay, I have a feeling it'll be a negative one. But there we go. Good opener?
Good opener. Quick and easy. Got to what it needed, and we've got matches booked for the pay-per-view and tonight.
Right, okay then. Samoa Joe and Magnus versus Crimson of Matt Morgan. Non-title match. Buckingham Brawl. I think Russo had a bit of influence here, but basically Buckingham Brawl is some concept where you flip. One team gets the tag rules, one team gets the tornado rules. Joe and Magnus got the tornado rules as their heels, and they get the advantage. Your thoughts on this segment?
Okay, with this particular match, for me to have got behind it more, I would have seen more of a impactful match. I would have had it a all in the ring tornado match instead of three in the ring sort of thing. I would have had them all in the ring, had one big fight going on, which would have made this match. It wasn't a bad match, but it's just I would have done it a bit differently.
I will say this though. With tornado tag rules, you have the heels on top of the face, which is kind of how it should be booking-wise in terms of getting crowd heat. The crowd were actually really behind Joe and Magnus, weren't they? It was almost like they were the faces and Crimson and Morgan were the fucking heels, the way this went. But the match got, what, 4 minutes? It's in a 2-on-1 situation. You know, I can tolerate this being a bit shorter, because in a 2-on-1 situation, you can beat the guy down a bit quicker. And, you know, Magnus got the pin in his hometown on Matt Morgan or Samoa Joe, I can't remember which one. So,
Matt Morgan.
To me, thanks for that, MJ. Good memory. Jermaine Danger has a fantastic memory. He remembers like an elephant. But anyway, so after all the attacks they've done, I'm finally glad they got a win and they got to like kind of establish themselves rather than just losing a match and getting attacked. So it's nice to see Samoa and Joe finally getting a win in some way or form, in my opinion.
Well, when it comes to a thing like this, with it being an important with the fans there and with it being a match that obviously is going to lead to a pay-per-view match again for the Samoa Joe and his partner
Magnus.
British
Magnus.
But
I thought you remembered everything.
I should do, yes. But for them to get the win over the tag champs, even a non-title match, it's got them ready for a future match, which I'm all for in this.
They definitely needed the win after losing to them both in singles matches, in my opinion. So this, to me, was a good segment. Eric Bischoff comes out to the ring next. Calls out Garrett Bischoff. The crowd, apparently, from what I heard, the crowd are really booing Bischoff at these... I'm botching like mad. Garrett Bischoff at these tapings, which was fantastic.
Well, even though, obviously, he's meant to be the face and everyone's meant to like him because, obviously, his dad's bullying him and all this, for the fans to actually realise that he's not as great as TNA wanted to make out to be, it was great to see, but shame it weren't shown tonight.
Yeah. We get Eric Bischoff talking about Hogan will never back Garrett Bischoff up, but, you know, we knew Hogan was going to be there tonight because they kind of announced it. So we knew from this segment we were going to get 2 segments of this, which was a bit annoying because I still can't believe that Garrett Bischoff is getting this massive rub and is in two segments on the show. It just why have them in 2 segments rather than just have it on? Just have the Hogan reveal and leave it at that.
Well, with the importance of TNA, Garrett is not one of the main draws and that. So for them to get 2 parts in one night, I think was a bit too much concentration on something that's not actually going to be hugely important in TNA.
At least it was short, though. That's all I can say about that. We got that led on to our just before the main event segment, which we'll talk about later. Next, we had some X Division action. Austin Aries versus hometown boy Mark Haskins. They're doing their best to get the hometown boys on there, aren't they? He got a nice little video package at the beginning to try and get him over as a face. It was pretty good.
When I looked at this match at first, I was thinking you're putting a guy who's not really done a great amount of deal against someone who is obviously going to win this match because of how high he is in TNA. But the match itself, it was a good back and forward. It weren't all Austin Aries dominating. You did have some good spots from Mark, so I thought it turned out to be better than what I thought it was at first.
It's funny that Austin Aries is more over than the hometown boy, wasn't it? I think that's a tribute to how good Austin Aries is as not just as a heel, but as a wrestler in general. The match went about 5 minutes. I thought this was some good action. You had Haskins botching the shooting star press, kind of like Brock Lesnar did at WrestleMania 19. Remember that? And that allows Aries to get the win. I'm glad Austin Aries won because we haven't seen him in action, I don't think, since in the build up to Against All Odds. So it's nice that he's in action and he's getting a win and we're seeing him in the ring. And having him in there with Mark Haskins was a pretty good match, I thought.
I thought it was a pretty good match. The botch was a bit sad that it happened, but the botch wasn't hugely bad, and it still made the match look quite decent as it was.
I think it might have improved the ending because you had Austin Aries hitting the brainbuster on the neck and then having the submission move on the neck. Good psychology, I'd say.
It worked out at the end.
Yeah, it worked out. That's the main thing. James Storm versus Bobby Roode, the first of 2 matches in our main event. I think one of the things we were quipping to each other was, why was this match in the our main event? And then I thought to myself, they're probably trying to keep it away from Hogan because Hogan's in the main event, but then he wasn't in the main event. So give me your thoughts on this match in general.
Well, this goes back to what I was saying at the beginning of this review. When it comes to these matches, one, you're having a pay-per-view match. I know it weren't for the title or anything, but it's still a pay-per-view match. People need to pay to see a big match like this. And the other thing is, Bobby Roode is not getting the main event. Buddy Ray is. And I kind of think the position of this match was a bit off. But the match itself, again, we knew it was going to be a good match because of the way these two have been together as a tag team and now in a match against each other. But I just think it was in the wrong place. I will say this. I think your point about it being in the wrong place is correct. I will say this, though. James Storm versus Bobby Roode, it was a very good match, obviously. These two do put on great matches. 11 minutes to 12 minutes. You have Bully Ray coming out to distract James Storm to allow Roode to get the pin via a spear, and then you have them attacking James Storm afterwards, which kind of set up the main event well. But I can tolerate these two going at it, because when they went at each other for the title, number one, it was for the title,
And number two, it was rushing the storyline. But with these two, they're involved in a fatal four-way. It's a non-title, so I can tolerate it a little bit more in that sense. But this probably should have been the main event, especially when it can main event a pay-per-view potentially.
That's the way I look at it. Again, it's a match that people want to see, but again, being our main event and it being, again, this match I would say is more important than James Storm versus Buddy Ray. But again, I don't know why they put this match first, but overall, it was a good match between two guys that we know that are eventually going to have a feud and put on more great matches against each other.
You raise a good point. They are probably going to have a feud at Lockdown. So, I mean, I thought this was a good match. I was content with it, thinking, I could tolerate this a little bit more than when we saw them before in that TV main event for the title when he smashed him with a beer bottle.
That's true. And the involvement of Buddy Ray and Sting, yes, it led to the main event. But again, Sting, again, as I said in past reviews, is getting involved too much in the main event scene when he's meant to be more of a owner.
Okay, defence here. Jeff Hardy wasn't there, so they kind of needed some other face in there. Just saying.
They should just left it for the attack and then let Buddy Ray and.
They need some nostalgia there, and Jeff Hardy's someone to cheer for. So for Sting to come out to me wasn't too bad. Jeff Hardy's not at the tapings, so we'll move on to the next segment. Gail Kim versus Tara in a non-title match. Your immediate thoughts?
With this match, again, it goes back to what I've been saying throughout the night. This is a pay-per-view match, and again, yes, it's warming up to see how it turns out, if it's going to be a good match or not. But at first thought, it's a pay-per-view match we were expecting. But again, these two actually did put on a good match, which was expected, because Gail Kim being the great knockout she is, and Tara being, obviously, a knockout that should be used in this kind of area.
Yeah, I thought the same thing as you when I first saw this match. But then I thought to myself, well, Tara hasn't really been on TV that much recently, and she's not really been made to look strong. So I thought getting a win over the champion in a non-title match wasn't too. I could tolerate that a little bit more because Tara hasn't been on TV for that much, and she hasn't really been looking like a title contender recently up until she won that #1 contenders match. So they kind of did have to make her look strong. She did win the match, so I mean, it was 5 minutes of decent good knockouts action.
It was actually a decent knockout match, I'll give it that. But again, I just look at it and thinking, good. Mazarine had a bit of involvement, but nothing too much to take anything affecting the match. And Tara picks up the win, which is obviously giving her the push towards Gail Kim for the championship match when it eventually happened. So overall, even though it was a pay-per-view type match, I still liked it, and it was still led to what's going to happen later at the pay-per-view.
It's like we said at the beginning of the show, though. At least, TNA were trying to put on a show for the UK fans. They probably could have done this a little bit differently, maybe have Mickey James in there, but I was pretty content with this segment, just based on the fact that I think Tara does need to look a bit. They need to kind of put wins on her a bit stronger because she hasn't been on TV for that long as a contender.
I guess we could look at it that way, yes.
We had the whole Hogan reveal again. Why did this need 2 segments? At least, I'm going to say this though, because we thought it was going to be the main event, didn't we? But at least it wasn't the main event. That's all I can say. That was a massive positive to this segment.
Well, Hogan being as big as it is, yes, you would think he's going to be in the main event. But with it being Garrett also involved, I'm kind of glad that he didn't get the main event slot, because obviously he's not there. He's not even in the main event area, and you're saving it for a feud or a hype, the Fatal 4-Way. So it's in the right place, I think.
Yeah, we get Gunner coming out with Eric interrupting him, and then all of a sudden the music hits, and Hulk Hogan is in UK wrestling, or in the UK on a TV show for the first time in 18 years. And let's face it, the crowd did react very strongly to him, and I'm kind of I'm not surprised really.
For the UK fans to get the privilege to see Hogan and on his return, it was something big for this actual show. And for him to come back and have that little fight with Gunner and then going after Bischoff, it's hyping up something that we can all see. Maybe a tag match is eventually going to be made from this. But the way it looked, again, it's a segment I'm not really too bothered about, but it's great to see Hogan back again.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much echoed my thoughts. I'm not too bothered about Garrett Bischoff. He's getting way too much of a rub for a guy that should really be in OVW. Also, I'm really questioning what they're doing with Gunner now. They're probably going to have him job out to these guys, and it's like you don't do all that build to Gunner, putting RVD out and injuring people for pretty much nothing. But I mean, the segment was okay overall, just because Hogan's back and in the UK, and that was a nostalgia moment. And I will say this though: we had 2 of these segments tonight. If you only had one, could you not have put like an AJ Styles, Kaz and Daniels segment in if you just had one segment? And those backstage interviews went for fucking ages, didn't they?
Well, the thing about this, is that while we didn't get much backstage segments, so I guess some of them needed to have some length. And if it was done in one, I think for Daniels and AJ to appear on a big show like this, which had all the great star power in the rest of the show, it would have made the show a bit better than what it already was. So I guess it could have been done in one big segment earlier in the night, or even now, and have AJ at the beginning of the night.
Probably so. I mean, I agree with that one. Card structure there. Main event of the evening: James Storm versus Bully Ray. Glad we got to see James Storm twice or 3 times technically in the show, because he is over with the crowd and he is one of those guys I do want to see as often as possible on TV.
Again, I'm glad that obviously they're hyping up James Storm, getting him as much involvement as they can. But again, him in the main event against Bully Ray, as we said earlier, it's in the wrong place. Bully Ray should have got our main event. But James Storm, again, even though he had that attack at the end of the last match, he still performed as well in this match and still had the event over Bully Ray.
The crowd were very hot for this match, and I'm not surprised really, because they worked it very old school style. You had Bully Ray focusing on the ribs. They worked the crowd pretty well. The crowd psychology was pretty well done there. That's the thing you get with Bully Ray. You don't necessarily get great wrestling, but you do get great psychology, and he works the crowd very well. So maybe that was why they put it in the main event. But I still would rather have Roode versus Storm. But I could tolerate it with the sense that they did get the crowd very hot, and it was a good way to end the show. You had James Storm overcoming Bully Ray in about 10 minutes. They gave the match good time. I thought this was a good main event. I like the way they worked it though, with the old school style. I thought that was pretty good.
Well, the fact that in this match, even with James Storm's rib injury, they still made them both look strong in this. So they hyped up the 3 guys that appeared in this show, ready for the Fatal 4-Way. Yeah. They all looked strong. They had the involvement of Sting and Roode at ringside eventually during the match. So they did have a lot going on in the main event to wrap it up nicely.
Yeah, and you had the whole Sting and Roode thing with Roode not interfering. They're kind of working that angle now, because Bully Ray's always had Roode's back, but Roode isn't having Bully Ray's back. So that's another angle they're working into that Fatal 4-Way, I think. So that Fatal 4-Way should be good. I'm looking forward to that Fatal 4-Way at the pay-per-view.
But eventually they're going to have to hype up Hardy more.
He won't be at the next taping, though.
No, he won't. So they've hyped up the right guys, and they gave us a good direction towards later matches before the pay-per-view.
Overall thoughts on the show this week?
Even though I had at first a negative feeling about some of the matches we got, because they're pay-per-view matches, we're getting them on a big show like this, the matches did turn out to be really good matches. We had plenty of wrestling, less backstage segments. The ones we got backstage they led to something. They weren't just stupid, pointless segments like we get in other TNA shows. So this show actually all led to something positive, and the matches turned out to be a lot more decent than what I thought they were.
Yeah, I've got to echo that. I honestly thought this was a really good Impact. The show flowed pretty well, in my opinion. The UK crowd really do, and it shows how much the crowd really do help a show in terms of quality as well, because when you have a good crowd there, the show feels a lot better. The wrestling we got was pretty good. All the segments seemed to have some kind of meaning to them going up to the pay-per-view. Storm and Roode was a good match. James Storm, Bully Ray, good match. So there was some good wrestling tonight, and we had the Hogan coming back thing, which kind of added a little bit of nostalgia to the show, I guess, saving his return for the UK, seeing as they don't come to the UK very often. So that was good that they included that in there, even if it is kind of like 10 years too late now. But I really enjoyed Impact tonight. I thought it was a good show. I'm looking forward to the next week's UK show now. Yeah,
they really gave us a good show, and obviously with it being in the UK, which they don't really come to, you do really expect them to put on a good show for the UK fans who don't really get this much because they're in that stupid Impact thing.
Yeah, exactly. So grade on this show?
Oh, grade. Again, I think it's going to get a bit more than a C+, just because of the entertaining matches, the direction towards the pay-per-view, non-filler, matches getting okay length, so it could get a C+, B-.
Oh, I'm going to give it a B+. I thought it was a really good show. The crowd really helped it, in my opinion. I honestly thought this was a good show. We got good wrestling. I can't really fault too much about the show, apart from the fact that there was 2 Garrett Bischoff segments. B+ for me. It was a good show. Well flowed. Liked it.
If I was to push it, I'd just give it a B, just to be fair. But the B+ would have only got it if there was Garrett Bischoff was in one segment. The matches could have got a bit more length, but overall, I think it was a really enjoyable show.
Right then, make sure you get your thoughts down on this TNA Impact Wrestling Edition, UK Edition. Down in that comment section below, I've been Mr. Parkin. This guy here has been Domo.NJ, and it's going to end the video and kill you all.
What's up? And people, I'm going to say this. This has been a really good show, which TNA needs to start giving us more of, so people can get behind the show, they can like it, give it good grades, and really get towards the pay-per-view. So now I'm going to say this, people. Leave your comments in the comment section below. And one thing I'm going to say now is, till next time, people, hasta vista, YouTubers.